Let's take a bit of a step back. Let's go back to your childhood and kind of how you got here. You'd mentioned in the conversation we had before that there was kind of a big moment that really kind of changed things in life. Uh, you want to kind of get into that big moment that happened when you were younger?
Yeah, sure. And just to backtrack to my self-claim of being a socially awkward and just flat-out weird child, I wasn't born that way, really. Around the age of 6, I lost my father. Heart attack at 38. Pretty gnarly shit, if you ask me. And during that time period of the ages of 6 to around 10, we lost about 6 other close family members that were all kind of my replacement dad, in a sense, you know. So there was a lot of like death and despair and depression around my family, and it was just basically me and my mom who are still left to this day. So yeah, I grew up very, very damaged, and the only thing that we did have, and what's always been kind of an internal motivator for me to succeed in sales, was that money was never an issue until maybe I was like 17 or 18. So in that sense, I grew up in a fairly wealthy environment, but that all also came to an end, and that's that's a story for later in the show, I guess.
That might be part 2 to what we're talking about. I mean, that's a lot, man. I couldn't imagine not having my dad now, and man's in his early 60s at this point. There were a handful of years that we didn't really talk, but that was just a couple of years, so I couldn't imagine losing him at such a young age. I would imagine, though, that does something to somebody, especially a little boy at that point, trying to grow up to be what is potentially a man without having that person there to be able to help. So what did that look like, and how do you think you actually not only found that yourself, but do you think you had the environment growing up that was good to be able to help you become the man that you are today?
No, really, I'd say that I was mostly self-raised. My mom was keeping down the fort, making sure that everything is all right. So I, again, grew up on cartoons and the internet until pretty much high school. One of the biggest things, and since this is the mindset and self-mastery show, one big reoccurring theme in my life has always been to try to hone out the toxic behaviors in myself and figure out where they're coming from and figure out how to fix them. And one of the biggest realizations that I've come to, given all the death that I had in my family at a very young age, is that especially when I entered the age of starting to have romantic relationships, I would have very, very superficial romantic relationships. That's how I would build them. And that was simply because, in other people's heads, when they see people, and especially people that they love, they associate somebody who's going to be around them forever. When I see somebody that I love, I'm used to life taking them away from me. So I would build very superficial, very short-term relationships that would be insanely toxic, and I would just be, I would live with the kind of notion of, fuck it, everybody dies. What does it matter if I hurt somebody, or if I step on somebody's toes, or, if I just behave ruthlessly toxic? And that was a theme in my life until maybe a year ago. And it was something that I took time in the pandemic to really figure out and to put an end to.